President of the United States, Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the Vice President-elect, the Executive Director for the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Mr. Michael Wagner, Senate Deputy Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper, Jason Bell, and House Deputy Sergeant-at-Arms, Mr. Sean Keating.
Qua lấy cuốn sách qua đây coi, nhanh lên. Right there, right there.
Ladies and gentlemen, the
Để
Vice
xuống.
President-elect of the United States, the Honorable J.D. Vance.
Cầm này để bên. Rồi cho anh cái này. Rồi xuống uống nước. Uống nước.
Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the President-elect, the Staff Director for the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Elizabeth Barrett, House Sergeant-at-Arms, the Honorable William P. McFarland, Senate Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper, the Honorable Jennifer A. Hemingway, Senate Majority Leader, the Honorable John Thune, and the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, House Democratic Leader, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, House Majority Leader, the Honorable Steve Scalise, Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Mike Johnson, Senate Democratic Leader, the Honorable Charles E. Schumer, Ranking Member of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Deb Hicks, and Chairwoman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar.
Off cái TV đó. Off. Để lên. Rồi. Ăn tiếp nhanh lên. Cất giấy nào sạch thì đem cất.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump.
Rồi uống nước đi.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
We have said all along the way, a historic comeback. Unlike anything we've seen in modern times, a political comeback of this nature. The American people witnessed the assassination attempts, what we saw play out in Butler, Pennsylvania. And we saw a former president who campaigned on the promise that he would do something about the economic pressures being felt by American families, rising prices, and something about
Please welcome the Chairman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar.
Now we will hear from Senator Klobuchar herself. Maybe she'll give us a window to the motorcade to ride with Joe
Good
Biden.
morning, everyone. Welcome to the 60th presidential inauguration. Today, President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Vance will take their oaths of office, and we will witness the peaceful transfer of power at the heart of our democracy. past year, I've chaired the inaugural ceremony committee, which includes the leadership of Congress from both parties. We thank the committee and Capitol staff and law enforcement who worked so hard over the last year, and especially the last 3 days. You've done a beautiful job, and you have shown grace under pressure. Our theme this year is our enduring democracy.
Xong rồi vô
The
phòng chơi nha.
presence of so many presidents and vice presidents here today is truly a testament to that endurance. We welcome President Biden and Dr. Biden. We welcome Vice President Harris and Doug Emhoff, President Obama, President Clinton and Secretary Clinton, President Bush and Laura Bush, Vice President Pence, Vice President Quayle and Marilyn Quayle. The justices of the United States Supreme Court are with us, all 9 of them, I counted, and of course, the Trump and Vance families. This ceremony marks what will soon be 250 years of our democracy. It is the moment when leaders elevated by the will of the people promise to be faithful.
Bà con cho số 8 để bà con được may mắn và làm giàu. Quý vị ơi, bà con cho số 8. Ai bình luận số 8 thì từ đây đến 4 năm sau sẽ trở thành triệu phú đô la. Ai bình luận số 8 thì từ đây đến 4 năm sau sẽ trở thành triệu phú đô la. Quý vị sẽ được may mắn 4 năm. Quý vị còn nhớ cách đây mấy tháng không? Cũng mình ngồi đây, mình bình luận số 8 và Tổng thống Trump đắc cử, nhớ không? Bình luận số 8.
Uống nước đi.
President Kennedy, who at one point worked as a senator in this building and would often walk through this very rotunda, once said, "In a democracy, every citizen, regardless of interest in politics, holds office. Every one of us is in a position of responsibility. With that responsibility of citizenship comes an obligation not to seek out malice, as President Lincoln once reminded us, but to view others with a generosity of spirit, despite our differences. With that responsibility of leadership comes an obligation to stand our ground when we must and find common ground when we can. With everything swirling around us, the hot mess of division, it is on all of us, to quote an incredible songwriter who just happened to be born in my state, to ensure that our nation's democracy is our shelter from the storm. There's a reason this ceremony takes place at the Capitol. In other countries, it might be in a presidential palace or a gilded executive office building. Here it is traditionally held at the Capitol, the People's House. It is a fitting reminder of the system of checks and balances that is the very foundation of our government. 3 equal branches of government. That is how, for nearly 250 years, our great American experiment, grounded in the rule of law, has endured. So, as we inaugurate a new president and vice president, let us remember that the power of those in this room comes from the people. The construction workers who build our country, the teachers and healthcare workers who nurture us, the troops defending our freedoms, and yes, the firefighters in Los Angeles putting themselves on the line for us. Our democracy's strength and grit must match theirs. May God bless our nation. Thank you. afternoon. Endurance through the years is the ultimate test. To persevere through time is the truest measure of an idea, an institution, and a nation. Our founders wrote the Constitution so that America could withstand all the twists and turns of time. They wrote it to guide us and to preserve forever our right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But as much as the truths and principles enshrined in our Constitution remain the same, our democracy promises the American people the power to change, to chart their own destiny. That's the beauty. That is the importance of democracy. It allows the endurance, the
Bấm like, nhấn nút chia sẻ để cho bà con vô nhiều nhiều quý vị ơi. Trời ơi, ngày vui của đất nước Mỹ, ngày vui của cả thế giới mà quý vị. Bấm nút chia sẻ để chúng ta lên 1K cô quý vị ơi.
Today is our country's 60th inauguration ceremony. Like all the others before it, it is a celebration of our right to set our uniquely American course. The past several years have been trying at times for many, many Americans, and also for the nations of the free world that we humbly strive to lead. In November, Americans chose again to steer this nation towards greatness, the secure, safe, and prosperous future that our founders envisioned for all of us. And today, we celebrate not only their decision to do so, but also the simple right and wisdom of a free people to make their own.
Bà con seatbelt nhé. Chút xíu nữa Tổng thống Trump ký những cái sắc lệnh á, liên quan tới crypto, liên quan tới xì tóc đó quý vị. Here we go. Xì tóc nó sẽ bay 7 giờ đêm nay. Xì tóc nó sẽ bay. Chút xíu nữa crypto nó sẽ bay. Chuẩn bị của lửa nha bà con ơi.
For our men and women in uniform, for each other, whose hopes are stoked this new year, this inauguration day.
4 năm trời chờ đợi ròng rã, cuối cùng thì giấc mơ của Tony Lê cũng đã trở thành sự thật quý vị ơi. Nhiệm kỳ 1, Tổng thống Trump đã giúp cho Tony Lê trở thành triệu phú đô la. Hy vọng kỳ này Tổng thống Trump cũng sẽ giúp cho tất cả mọi người, không riêng gì Tony Lê, trở thành triệu phú đô la. Please, nhấn nút chia sẻ, bấm số 8. Bà con nào chưa nhấn nút đăng ký, nhớ nhấn nút đăng ký nha. Ai về đội của Tony Lê để muốn trở thành triệu phú đô la thì về đội của Tony Lê. Còn ai mà muốn về đội của Tổng thống Mỹ Joe Biden thì về nhà dưỡng già. Về hưu, right here, ok? Right here. Đó, ai muốn về đội của Tony Lê trở thành triệu phú đô la thì nhấn nút chia sẻ, bấm nút like, bấm nút đăng ký.
Bless America, please mentor every flaw. You are the God in whom we trust, who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen. Mr. President, the last 4 years, there are times I'm sure you thought it was pretty dark. But look what God has done. We praise him and give him glory. Let us pray. Our Father and our God, thou hast said, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. As the prophet Daniel prayed, blessed be the name of God forever and ever. For wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings. He raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge.
Quý vị thấy không? Elon Musk kìa, Elon Musk nhảy nhảy lên kìa, Elon Musk nhảy nhảy nè, right here.
Administration of American patriots, we will be working to meet every crisis. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First,
Ông Bảy cười mỉa mai kìa, ông Bảy ông cười mỉa mai kìa. Trời ơi, ông Bảy ơi. Bấm like quý vị ơi, quý vị quên bấm like luôn rồi kìa.
immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places.
Đó, trục xuất liền, di dân lậu, tội phạm, trục xuất liền.
Remain in Mexico, Palestine.
Khoan dầu.
America will be a manufacturing nation once again, and we have something that no other manufacturing nation will ever have.
Đó, công ty sản xuất nó sẽ ở trong cái đất nước Mỹ này quý vị ơi.
And we are going to use it.
Hy vọng Tổng thống Trump nói về crypto nha, hy vọng nha, 123 nói về crypto nha, 123.
Fill our strategic reserves up again right to the top and export American energy all over the world.
Đó, right. Bây giờ nãy giờ là Tổng thống Trump đang nói về dầu hỏa, năng lượng.
With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers.
Đó. Trời ơi, nói về một cái từ crypto, Tổng thống ơi.
In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice. We will build automobiles in America again at a rate that nobody could have dreamt possible just a few years ago. And thank you to the auto workers of our nation for your inspiring vote of confidence. We did tremendously with their vote. I will immediately begin the overhaul of our trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens.
Yes. Người dân Mỹ sẽ không bị đóng thuế nữa. Hy vọng là cái dự luật này sẽ được thông qua quý vị ơi. Chúng ta sẽ không còn đóng thuế, tức là đi làm đóng thuế đúng không? Hy vọng là trong tương lai chúng ta sẽ không đi làm đóng thuế nữa.
Amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before. To restore confidence and effectiveness to our federal government, my administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency.
Tổng thống Trump sẽ làm một cái dự luật, một cái nói nôm na là sẽ không để cho người dân Mỹ đóng thuế nữa đâu quý vị ơi. Chúng ta đi làm chúng ta sẽ lãnh hết tiền.
I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America.
Yeah, tự do ngôn luận cho người dân Mỹ. Mình không có bị cấm ngôn luận nữa rồi quý vị ơi, tự do xì biết.
We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law.
Trời ơi, hy vọng Tổng thống Trump nói về một từ crypto quý vị ơi. Crypto.
Bring law and order back to our cities. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Yes. Chỉ có đàn ông hoặc đàn bà thôi chứ không có BD quý vị nhé. Không có cái vụ chính giữa nha quý vị. Bắt đầu kể từ giây phút này nước Mỹ trời sinh ra chỉ có đàn ông hoặc đàn bà thôi chứ không có vụ BD lửng lơ lơ nửa nạc nửa mỡ.
This week I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay.
Bây giờ hy vọng Tổng thống Trump nói tới crypto, please.
I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. It's going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be free to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies. Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. I'm pleased to say that as of yesterday, one day before I assumed office, the hostages in the Middle East are coming back home to their families. America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we will restore the name
Đó.
of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs.
Đó, bây giờ Tổng thống Trump đang nói từ từ những cái sắc lệnh mà Tổng thống Trump ký ngày hôm nay đó quý vị. Hy vọng nó có một cái sắc lệnh nó sẽ có cái chữ crypto nha quý vị ơi.
Made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent. He was a natural businessman and gave Teddy Roosevelt the money for many of the great things he did, including the Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. The United States, I mean, think of this, spent more money
than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form, and that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. Above all, my message to Americans today is that it is time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization. So as we liberate our nation, we will lead it to new heights of victory and success. We will not be deterred. Together we will end the chronic disease epidemic and keep our children safe, healthy, and disease-free. The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
Đó, ông Elon Musk ông mừng quá kìa, ông mừng quá kìa quý vị. Ông Elon Musk ông nghe tổng thống Trump nói là đi lên sao Hỏa, cái ông mừng quá kìa, cười quá trời cười kìa.
Is the lifeblood of a great nation, and right now our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth. No one comes close. Americans pushed thousands of miles through a rugged land of untamed wilderness. They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I stand before you now as proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best. From New York to Los Angeles, from Philadelphia to Phoenix, from Chicago to Miami, from Houston to right here in Washington, D.C., our country was forged and built by the generations of patriots who gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. They were farmers and soldiers, cowboys and factory workers, steel workers and coal miners, police officers and pioneers who pushed onward, marched forward, and let no obstacle defeat their spirit or their pride. Together they laid down the railroads, raised up the skyscrapers, built great highways, won 2 world wars, defeated fascism and communism, and triumphed over every single challenge that they faced. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America's promise, and we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We're going to win like never before. Thank you. Thank you. In recent years, our nation has suffered greatly, but we are going to bring it back and make it great again, greater than ever before. We will be a nation like no other, full of compassion, courage, and exceptionalism. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally unpredictable. America will be respected again and admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. Thank you. God bless America. Thank you all. Thank you.
The inauguration address from the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump. 30 minutes long. His first inauguration some 8 years ago was about 16 minutes, 14 seconds to be exact. He talked about the golden age of America beginning right now. That this country will be respected again. The scales of justice rebalanced, he said. The weaponization of the Justice Department goes away.
America the Beautiful, please welcome the Armed
National
Forces
emergency at the southern border will
Carrie
declare this afternoon. Let's listen to Carrie Underwood, and we'll get thoughts from everybody in here in the studio to the inauguration. So they began to play a little bit of the background music to her song there a moment ago. I think they're waiting to fix that as Carrie Underwood prepares to perform there in the rotunda. Obviously, this is inside because of the weather today, but it does take on a distinctly different flavor instead of being on the west front of the Capitol and the platform where everybody is sort of spread out. It was quite something to watch the president-elect Now the president, as 47th President of the United States, delivered his inaugural address, with the outgoing president and vice president sitting right there beside him in just about every shot on all of the major points. But he talked about
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of rain, for purple mountain majesties above the ruined plain. God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
benedictions next. Shaking President Biden's hand, the vice president, the outgoing vice president Kamala Harris singing the words along with him. Shaking 47th President Donald Trump's hands there, and the vice president J.D. Vance.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Fisher will now introduce the benediction clergy.
I now call on Rabbi Ari Berman, Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, and Reverend Frank Mann to provide prayers of benediction.
Let us pray. Almighty God, your prophet Jeremiah walked the streets of Jerusalem and blessed its inhabitants with the Hebrew words, Baruch HaGever Asher Yivtach BaHashem. Blessed is the one who trusts in God. Thousands of years later, this great nation, which adopted these words as its motto, "In God we trust," stands at a moment of historic opportunity. Americans are searching for meaning. Our merciful Father, help us rise to meet this moment. Bless President Donald J. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance with the strength and courage to choose the right and the good. Unite us around our foundational biblical values of life and liberty, of service and sacrifice, and especially of faith and morality, which George Washington called the indispensable supports of American prosperity. Guide our schools and college campuses, which have been experiencing such unrest, to inspire the next generation, to pair progress with purpose, knowledge with wisdom, and truth with virtue. Hear the cry of the hostages, both American and Israeli, whose pain our president so acutely feels. We are so thankful for the 3 young women who yesterday returned home, and pray that the next 4 years brings peace to Israel and throughout the Middle East. Almighty God, grant all Americans the opportunity to realize our shared dream of a life filled with peace and plenty, health and happiness, compassion and contribution. Stir within us the confidence to rise to this moment. For while we trust in God, God's trust is in us, the American people. America is called to greatness, to be a beacon of light and a mover of history. May our nation merit the fulfillment of Jeremiah's blessing, that like a tree planted by water, we shall not cease to bear fruit. May all of humanity experience your love and your blessing. May it be thy will, and let us say, Amen.
Let us pray for our 47th president. Heavenly Father, we're so grateful that you gave our 45th and now our 47th president a millimeter miracle. We are grateful that you are the one that have called him for such a time as this, that America would begin to dream again. We pray that we would fulfill the true meaning of our creed, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We pray that you use our president, that we will live in a nation where we will not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, we are so grateful today that you will use our 47th president so we would sing with new meaning, my country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and because America is called to be a great nation, we believe that you will make this come true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous hilltops of California, but God, we're asking you not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and every molehill in Mississippi, from every state, every city, every village, and every hamlet. And when we let freedom ring, we will be able to speed up that day where all of your children, black men and white men, Protestant and Catholic, Jew and Gentile, will be able to sing in the meaning of that old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank you, God Almighty. We are free at last. If you believe what the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Come on, put your hands together and give your great God great glory.
Almighty and eternal God, we gather here today in reverence, joined in our shared hopes and dreams for our beloved nation. In this sacred moment of the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, we turn our hearts to you, seeking your divine assistance and abundant blessings upon this pivotal moment in history. We come before you with profound gratitude for the many gifts you have bestowed upon our land. Thank you for the freedoms we cherish, for the strength of our communities, and for the resilience of our spirit. As our President and Vice President embrace their newly appointed roles, we humbly implore that your everlasting love and wisdom will envelop them. Grant them the clarity of mind to navigate the challenges that lie ahead, and the compassion to serve all citizens with fairness and integrity. May their hearts be filled with a giving spirit and sincere understanding for those whom they represent. May they be beacons of hope in times of uncertainty and prophetic voices in defending the dignity of all created life. We pray for a spirit of collaboration to flourish in our government and across our nation, fostering an environment where dialogue and heartfelt listening will prevail over division or discord. May each decision made by our President and Vice President reflect the values of justice and peace. As we embark on this new chapter, we also seek your comfort, O God, for those who feel lost or disheartened. In this time of transition, may your light shine upon them, reaffirming their belief in a brighter tomorrow. May we all strive to lift one another, supporting our fellow citizens with kindness and empathy, recognizing that together we can overcome any adversity. Grant us the strength to endure, the courage to face our fears, and the clarity to see the light that remains, even when clouds of uncertainty may gather. Inspire our new leaders to be champions for the vulnerable and advocates for those whose voices are often silenced. May they pursue policies that promote the well-being of all, seeking to build bridges that will foster unity and belonging. As we stand witness to this inauguration, we hold fast to the faith, to our faith in the goodness of each of us and the possibility of change. We trust that with your guidance, O God, our nation can move forward to a future filled with promise, prosperity, and understanding. And finally, we lift our hearts in gratitude for the beloved parents of President Trump. Without Mary and Fred Trump, this day would never be the miracle that has just begun. From their place in heaven, may they shield their son from all harm by their loving protection, and give him the strength to guide our nation along the path that will make America great again. Let us go forth now with these words of President Trump's emblazoned on our hearts. As long as we have pride in our beliefs, courage in our convictions, and faith in our God, then we will not fail. We stand tall, we stand proud, because we are Americans, and Americans kneel to God, and to God alone. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for our national anthem.
Quốc ca nước Mỹ nè quý vị ơi. Hay quá.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Christopher Bacchio, of course, performing the national anthem.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain at your seats while the President and official party depart the platform.
This is always an extraordinary moment here. The President and First Lady now leaving. President Donald Trump, 47th President of the United States, First Lady Melania Trump, they have returned 8 years after first coming to Washington. Again, the inaugural address moved indoors, and it created some slightly different dynamics in just about every shot of the president during those key moments, particularly when he was critical of the outgoing administration. The outgoing administration would almost always be in the camera shot in some form or fashion, which made this slightly different from usual. And there we see the president and first lady leaving. Lindsay Davis, what did you make of the address?
You know, I think I've got to steal from Senator Klobuchar when she talked earlier today about a hot mess of division. I think that those words were still on display there in not only what we heard from Donald Trump, but even in the body language that we saw from Biden and Harris, who really had a front row seat to listen to their successor outline his plans to eviscerate what they've tried to accomplish for their entire agenda.
Bây giờ Tổng thống Trump sẽ đi vào tòa Bà Đốc nè quý vị.
The American people have spoken. Those words spoken by Donald Trump just a few moments ago in the same building where 1,475 days ago, of course, the January 6th attacks took place. 34 convictions, 2 assassination attempts later. Trump saying that his proudest legacy will be as peacemaker and that of a unifier. And it'll be up to history to determine ultimately 4 years from now and beyond if he's able to achieve that goal, and also what he said in the very beginning and end of his speech, the golden age of America begins right now. We spoke earlier, David, about the amount of wealth that's inside the room.
Bây giờ bắt đầu vào văn phòng để ký sắc lệnh rồi quý vị ơi, chuẩn bị đi. Gần 200 cái sắc lệnh Tổng thống Trump sẽ ký ngày hôm nay đó quý vị ơi.
I would be remiss if I said it did not really reflect that of the American population when it comes to diversity, at least by what we see represented in the room, perhaps additionally by wealth. But Donald Trump did say that we will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. And that's certainly what, as we were reminded, this is taking place on MLK Day, that he constantly asked for, right? That he wanted to be judged not by the color of our skin, but the content of our character. And so we'll see if his words ultimately come true, and that we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools.
He did say on this MLK Day that he will strive.
Đây, đi vào tòa Bà Đốc nè quý vị ơi.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream becomes a reality. And the American people now watch over the course of the next 4 years. He said, as you can see,
ký sắc lệnh Tổng thống Trump ơi. Trời ơi, tối nay những cái cổ phiếu dầu hỏa nó bắn má nhận không ra nè. Hồi nãy quý vị nghe Tổng thống Trump nói không? Khai thác, khoan dầu.
Democrats sitting as Donald Trump really takes through everything that he plans to do. And of course, Joe Biden is sitting right there in a way that I don't think we've really ever seen, watching with a front row seat as Donald Trump repudiates his administration, blasting his administration as a failure. But more than that, he really repudiated Joe Biden's worldview, his values, promising to unravel much that he has done on diversity, equity, and inclusion, declaring there will only be 2 genders, male and female. And Biden's sitting there while Donald Trump is doing what he has promised, which is to just reverse, essentially, and unravel Joe Biden's agenda. And doing all of this, of course, after Joe Biden made a point of reaching out to Donald Trump, inviting him to the White House today, participating in this day together. together. There was no nod to Biden, no overture to him at all. And instead, he promised the American people that he will reclaim the American Republic, declaring this is a liberation day. And, you know, it does strike me, especially as we're about to watch Joe Biden depart Washington for the last time, that when Joe Biden ran in 2020, he predicted that Trump's time in office would be an aberration. That's the word he often used in
Quý vị thấy không?
American history.
An ninh kìa, quý vị thấy nhìn thấy cái an ninh chưa? Ghê gớm chưa? Bên ngoài á, an ninh quá trời kìa. Ông Elon Musk, ông cười quá rồi quý vị ơi. Ông nghe Tổng thống Trump nói hồi nãy là sẽ đi lên sao hỏa gì đó, ông cười quá trời luôn. Chuẩn bị đi, chuẩn bị lên sao hỏa quý vị ơi. Ông Elon Musk, ông vô mánh rồi. Ông Elon Musk vô mánh rồi. Dễ sợ cho cảnh sát dày đặc luôn kìa quý vị. Dày đặc luôn kìa, mật vụ Mỹ ở trên nóc nhà này quá trời luôn đây nè. Mật vụ Mỹ trên nóc nhà quá trời nè quý vị ơi. Rụt rịch một cái là nó tỉa, má nhận không ra. Đúng rồi chị Thu Đỗ ơi. Dạ, cho dù Tổng thống Trump nhậm chức trong nhà nhưng mà cũng hoành tráng hơn 4 năm trước dưới cái thời của ông Biden. Chỉ có 400 lá cờ gì ở ngoài sân á. Dạ, đây chú Sáu của chúng ta nè, chú Sáu xuất hiện rồi kìa. 4 năm trước thì ông Bảy ổng nhậm chức không có một bóng người, chị nhắc em mới nhớ, toàn là lá cờ không à, không có một con ma dự. Tổng thống Trump nhậm chức trong nhà nhưng mà cũng đông đảo hơn, hoành tráng hơn là cái thời ông Biden nhậm chức. Bên ngoài mật vụ Mỹ, cảnh sát rầm rộ. Dạ, cảm ơn anh Khánh Lê. Cảm ơn anh Tạ Đo. Đây vợ chồng ông Bill Clinton đây.
And obviously the White House. And there you just saw Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton interacting with Don Jr. And Ivanka Trump.
Ivanka đây, Ivanka con gái của Tổng thống Trump đây.
Connected in any kind of way. The Clintons reaching a hand out to the Trump family as they leave. Barron, Jared Kushner there shaking hands with the Clintons. Always interesting to see these sort of interpersonal dynamics. We're about to see.
Bây giờ bắt đầu Tổng thống Trump sẽ ngồi xuống cái ghế tổng thống. Giây phút đầu tiên sẽ cầm cái viết lên và ký hàng trăm cái sắc lệnh đây nè quý vị ơi. Dạ đúng rồi chị.
At least at the beginning, because we've heard it's tradition now that during these inaugural addresses, the incoming president generally references, the outgoing administration, at least thanks them for their service. None of them see eye to eye with these pieces.
Bấm like, bấm nút chia sẻ bà con ơi, bấm like, bấm nút chia sẻ bà con ơi. Bấm nút đăng ký bà con ơi, để channel thứ hai của Tony Lê đạt được 100.000 subscriber. Cảm ơn quý vị rất nhiều.
Horrible betrayal. This wasn't the American carnage speech of 8 years ago, but it was a harsh condemnation of the outgoing president and a promise of a new age and the implicit, even the optimistic parts of
đây bây giờ bắt đầu giây phút chú Bảy rời khỏi tòa Bạch Ốc nè quý vị ơi. Đây là giây phút chú Bảy rời khỏi tòa Bạch Ốc đây nè quý vị ơi. Tổng thống Mỹ Joe Biden sẽ bắt đầu chính thức rời khỏi tòa Bạch Ốc giây phút này nè quý vị.
Don Jr. And Don Jr., who helped his father navigate this campaign, orchestrated the campaign in many respects, helped make some key decisions, or at least push his father in that direction. Obviously, J.D. Vance is the biggest decision that Don Jr. had suggested. RFK Jr. was something he pushed as well. Ivanka and Jared leaving there. Eric and Lara, who is obviously a rising star.
Đây, con trai út của Tổng thống Trump đi cuối cùng.
As I mentioned earlier, for Marco Rubio's Senate seat for a time. We'll be watching her because her next step will be, if it's in the political world, and many believe it will be, given her clout now, having run the RNC and what was a very successful effort to get her father-in-law back to the White House. But Mark, I think about the setting as we've been talking about for this address, not on the western side of the Capitol, on that large stage, if you will, that allows actually for the speech to be the incoming president is the central figure. Everybody else is sort of off to the side. So they're sort of spread out, if you will. This was very intimate, which forces actually this sort of visual where you're seeing the outgoing president and vice president intimately listen to what the incoming president has to say, which actually sort of elevated what he was trying to accomplish there today.
You're absolutely right. It was such a harsh repudiation of Joe Biden and
Đây, giờ bắt đầu ông Bảy sẽ đi ra khỏi tòa Bạch Ốc giây phút này đây. Đây, quý vị gửi một lời chào tạm biệt đến Tổng thống Mỹ Joe Biden cũng như là đệ nhất phu nhân, cụ đệ nhất phu nhân quý vị nhé. Gửi lời chào tạm biệt đến Tổng thống Mỹ Joe Biden quý vị ơi. Cảm ơn Tổng thống Mỹ Joe Biden đã phục vụ cho đất nước Mỹ 4 năm vừa qua dưới cái chức vụ là Tổng thống Mỹ. Đây, một cái tấm hình cuối cùng. Một cái tấm hình cuối cùng. Một cái tấm hình cuối cùng. Dạ, bây giờ thì ông Bảy và vợ ổng sẽ leo lên cái chiếc trực thăng này đây để rời khỏi tòa Bạch Ốc. Đó. Tổng thống Mỹ Joe Biden chính thức đưa lại cái chìa khóa tòa Bạch Ốc cho Tổng thống Trump rồi quý vị nhé. Chính thức đưa lại rồi quý vị.
And for Joe Biden, forgive me as I'm just sort of taking in this moment. It is remarkable to see all of this. But he called himself a bridge president to a new generation. And now here he is. I don't think he imagined that next president being Donald Trump. David?
Wade Johnson, thank you. You're right. He did say he would be a bridge to the next generation. And what's happened instead is a bridge back to the previous administration. Donald Trump returning to the White House as 47th president. Watching the Vice President Kamala Harris leave as J.D. Vance.
Đây, bà Kamala, bà chính thức lên xe rời khỏi tòa Bạch Ốc giây phút này đây. That's it. Her job is finished. The last 4 years, now it's finished right now. Rồi sau đó bắt đầu mới tới phiên cựu tổng thống Joe Biden. Đây, bà Kamala bà rời khỏi tòa Bạch Ốc. Right here. That's it. No more. No more.
Joe Biden, very clear, he was no longer president. And having to listen to that speech, that repudiation, that long list of grievances, really, it not only sounded like a State of the Union speech to me, it sounded like a Trump rally. He was talking to his voters, those support him. And there are millions and millions and millions of those voters.
Đây, bây giờ bắt đầu tiễn đưa chú Bảy lên cái chiếc trực thăng để rời khỏi tòa Bạch Ốc đây. Ok, mới vừa đưa chìa khóa cho Tổng thống Trump xong rồi, bây giờ đi đây. Trả lại tòa Bạch Ốc cho Tổng thống Trump đây. Mà ông ta đã lấy 4 năm về trước. 4 năm về trước thì ông Bảy ông lấy cái chìa khóa từ tay Tổng thống Trump. Bây giờ thì ông phải trả lại cho Tổng thống Trump. 4 năm về trước ông lấy chìa khóa từ tay Tổng thống Trump, bây giờ ông trả lại đây.
through that speech and the kind of condemnation it was.
The first ladies embracing there, arms around one another.
And did you notice that President Trump and Kamala Harris seemed to have quite a few words at the end there? I think it's the biggest exchange of words between the two of them since our debate.
Since the debate the day after at the 9/11 memorial down at Ground Zero, he extended his hand to the vice president, and I always thought that was a moment where they acknowledged that they both sort of
Tổng thống Trump bây giờ bắt đầu đi vào tòa Bạch Ốc, bắt đầu ký sắc lệnh nè quý vị, bắt đầu đi vào tòa Bạch Ốc ký sắc lệnh đây, chính thức lấy lại chìa khóa từ tay cựu tổng thống Biden. Và đây ông Biden ông bắt đầu rời khỏi tòa Bạch Ốc. Sau nửa thế kỷ ông làm việc ở cái khu vực này, sau nửa thế kỷ ông làm việc ở ngay tại cái khu vực này, bây giờ ông không còn làm việc nữa. Cựu tổng thống Biden chính thức đi về nghỉ hưu rồi quý vị nhé, chính thức rời khỏi cái nơi mà ông đã làm việc 50 năm, nửa thế kỷ. Cựu tổng thống Biden á, mình nói như vậy đi cho dễ hiểu. Right here, ông bay lên một cái là ông không còn ở vòng quanh cái vị trí này nữa. Sau 50 năm ông làm việc ở cái vị trí này.
With the First Lady Joe Biden on what was Marine One, now renamed because he is no longer the president after 50 years in politics and after 4 years as president, certainly 8 years as vice president.
Vừa livestream vừa canh me crypto.
Longtime member of the Senate. And you have to wonder, Mary Jordan, if Marine One will fly over the White House one more time as Ronald Reagan began with former First Lady Nancy Reagan all those years ago.
Amy Klobuchar had said that the theme was enduring democracy, and you just saw Jill Biden reach out over and put her arm around Melania, and it seems that there is a big effort here, especially on the Democratic.
Số 8 quý vị ơi, số 8 quý vị ơi, trời ơi, số 8 cho may mắn rồi. Chưa được 1000 cái like nữa, sao hôm nay sao mình yếu dữ vậy? Hôm nay Tổng thống Trump nhậm chức mà quý vị yếu quá, vậy mà đòi giàu, đòi triệu phú đô la gì trời ơi. Người ta phải sốt sắng lên, người ta phải rầm rộ lên. Hôm nay ngày Tổng thống Trump nhậm chức mà quý vị yếu quá. Đây, chiếc trực thăng chở cựu Tổng thống Biden rời khỏi cái nơi mà ông ta đã làm việc trong 50 năm tuổi đời. 50 năm cuộc đời cựu tổng thống Biden đã làm việc ở cái khu vực này, bây giờ không còn nữa. Cảm ơn cựu tổng thống Biden đã cống hiến cuộc đời 50 năm cuộc đời cho đất nước Mỹ, cho người dân Mỹ, nhưng mà không biết có cái tích sự gì không, nhưng mà nói nôm na mình cũng cảm ơn nha quý vị. Cho dù không làm được cái tích sự gì cho người dân Mỹ và đất nước Mỹ, nhưng mà chúng ta cũng phải cảm ơn là 50 năm cuộc đời cựu tổng thống Biden đã cống hiến cho đất nước Mỹ và người dân Mỹ. Bà con nào rảnh rỗi thì vào channel thứ 2 của Tony Lê để xem và đăng ký để giúp Tony Lê đạt được 100.000 subscriber nhé. Bây giờ chúng ta được 80 mấy ngàn rồi quý vị ơi, chỉ còn có 10 mấy ngàn nữa thôi là chúng ta được cái nút bạc rồi quý vị. Tony Lê Houston, đó là cái channel thứ 2 của Tony Lê. Nè quý vị thấy mặc vụ Mỹ không? Người ta đứng nè. Đó, đây là những người xạ thủ đó quý vị. Những người xạ thủ đây. Đây, những người xạ thủ đây. Đứng đầy hết chân đây. Rụt rịch một cái là người ta nã coi như nã là nhận không ra luôn. Nã nhận không ra luôn. Cái gì? Tạm biệt đồng chí Chô. Đồng chí Chô đã chính thức về hưu kể từ giây phút này quý vị ơi. Đồng chí Chô của chúng ta đã chính thức về lãnh lương hưu. Alright. Rồi, that's it. Đây nè quý vị không? Cất cánh lên là xong rồi đó. Là chú Bảy không còn ở trong vòng cái vị trí này nữa. Ok. Đồng chí Chô đã chính thức được nhận lương hưu kể từ giây phút này quý vị ơi.
I think Dr. King is speaking to us on this day. In his final book, Where Do We Go From Here, Dr. King wrote,
Not bad, huh?
"We will err and falter as we climb the mountain's familiar slopes and steep peaks, but there is no alternative. There will be agonizing setbacks along the way with creative advances. Our consolation is no one can know true taste of victory if he has never swallowed defeat." I think what Dr. King was telling us then is that in America, there are days in which you win, there are days in which you lose. But the arc of America, which embraces all of us, is always moving forward, is always moving higher.
Rồi đây nè,
It's with us as well.
tới gì nữa đây?
We watched what was Marine One, renamed now since Joe Biden is no longer the president, former President Joe Biden and Joe Biden leave the Capitol. That was the pool shot that they provide, and I gather they've now moved on from that pool shot, Mark. And now I would, as tradition has it now, the big Ronald Reagan had famously asked for one last look around for the White House. Nancy Reagan famously wrote in her memoir that he leaned over and said, "There's our little bungalow." So you just have to wonder, Lindsay, if they're going to take one last trip.
And now we have the shot again. And to your point, David, wondering, and we may never know, the potential relief that he feels on this day. This is a guy who in
Đó, cái chiếc trực thăng chở cựu tổng thống Biden bay một vòng Washington DC lần cuối. Đây.
This is somebody who's been dogged now, at least for the last year, about his mental fitness and his capacity to be able to run this nation. And so you'd imagine there's a bittersweet sense, perhaps more bitter than sweet, though, for Joe Biden today.
Yeah, difficult to leave Washington knowing that he was not able to get the Democrats over the finish line for a second term, whether he could serve the entire 4 years of that term or not. He has said in recent days that he wished that he had communicated his achievements in a way that the American people would have received, and he took the blame for that, for not communicating that better. He does hand over to the incoming President Trump, an economy that is rebounding. Inflation has come down, though the American people still feel higher prices, and that is a very real thing. Stock market having a very good year, and it'll be on Donald Trump now to keep that going. He stepped in 6 months before the election on the border, and many, even within the Democratic Party, say, had we just done that sooner, perhaps part of the equation would have been different heading into that campaign season. And of course, the very big question here is just age itself. Sometimes you can't outrun age, and that was on full display, Mary Bruce, in that first debate. President Biden, the outgoing former President Biden, I guess we have to get used to saying, talked about how he wasn't feeling well that night, he had a cold, but we also know that, age catches up to you in what is a very stressful job in the White House. We also know that Donald Trump now enters the White House slightly older than what Joe Biden was when he arrived at the White House.
Yeah, and that inevitable march of time is something that none of us can beat, despite Joe Biden and his campaign's best effort. It does appear, I think, based on my knowledge of Washington geography, that he is making that flyover there of the White House.
And the Capitol, where he spent so much of his career.
And I was going to say, it is remarkable when you think about, his more than 50 years in public service, more than 3 decades in his beloved Senate. You could argue that he always considered himself a senator first. He also spent over 3 decades trying to get to the White House. To only spend 1 term there has got to be something he grapples with. He has argued in recent days, as you noted, that so many of his accomplishments may not be felt by the American people just yet, but he said he's planted the seeds, mentioning the Inflation Reduction Act, the infrastructure, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And he really did leave with that parting message about the need for Americans to protect American democracy, arguing that it's now in Americans' hands, that his legacy and his work, that it is up to Americans to carry that forward, because he, of course, is not getting the opportunity to finish the job. That was his campaign slogan, and of course, neither is Kamala Harris. But as he makes that flyover, you have to wonder if the Washington that he devoted his life to, he feels like he no longer recognizes.
Let's go to Kira Phillips. Mary Bruce, thank you. Kira, you're in the overflow room. I know where the incoming president, President Trump, has now arrived. What do you see? What do you hear?
That is right. Well, people are starting to cheer right now. You can see there the Speaker of the House as the President of the United States is working his way down the steps right now. The First Lady by his side. You know, you think of this presidential inauguration, David, it's here come the cheers. It's a rite of passage. It's about a peaceful transfer of power. And what a stark difference compared to 4 years ago here in this building. It's very quiet right now as they're working their way down the steps, but I can tell you 4 years ago, he was denying the election results. There was an insurrection. And now you have a peaceful transfer of power where his fans and supporters are here shouting USA. It's gone quiet once again as he approaches the stage. You know, I had a chance to meet with him recently. We talked, spent more than an hour together. Much of what we heard in that inauguration speech is what he told me, that he was going to move at lightning speed. And lightning speed is what we are seeing. You know, Biden set a record on his first day, David, 15 executive orders. The president saying, he's talking about 200 executive orders, closing the border, mass deportations, reinstating travel bans, reversing Biden's climate policies. The Vice President now of the United States speaking. Let's listen in.
That was a good way to start it off. You know, I didn't know exactly what the president would put in that speech, and I hoped to myself that he wasn't going to hold back, and I'm sure you didn't hold back. That was a hell of a way to start the next 4 years, but I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, and I know I speak for the president and for all of us, thank you, thank you, thank you for making this possible. We love you. We wouldn't be here without you, and we're going to make America great again together for the next 4 years. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, having stood outside for about 5 minutes to wave goodbye to the Bidens, thank God we moved that thing indoors because it was a beautiful ceremony and it was cold as hell outside. So, sir, the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
No, he's right. I said, oh, look at this beautiful sunny day. We blew it, and then I went outside and we were freezing. You would have been very unhappy. The sun was very deceptive, I will tell you. It is cold out. And I'm sort of saying, you know, that was so beautiful today. Maybe they should do.
Hy vọng Tổng thống Trump sẽ ký những cái xác lệnh liên quan tới crypto and stock quý vị ơi. Chắc chắn rồi đó, chắc chắn là sẽ ký á, nhưng mà mình không biết cái gì đây. Từ từ rồi mình sẽ khám phá nha. Từ từ mình sẽ khám phá coi Tổng thống Trump sẽ ký cái xác lệnh gì ngày hôm nay. Để mà tối nay 7 giờ đêm stock mở cửa lại sẽ bay, và một chút xíu nữa crypto nó sẽ bay đi tìm chị Hằng. Chị Hằng ơi where are you, tụi tôi tìm chị 4 năm qua mệt quá chị Hằng ơi. Bây giờ Tổng thống Trump xuất hiện rồi, chị xuất hiện đi chị Hằng ơi. Here we go, here we go.
We just had a great time. We just had a great day. This was amazing. You know, when you think we took a journey, I mentioned in the speech, a lot of people said that was not a journey that was possible, and it was indeed possible. I didn't really know
Crypto.
A lot of people felt it, and we hooked up with JD very early. I watched JD over a period of time. I endorsed him in Ohio. He was a great senator, and very, very smart. The only one smarter than him was his wife. So I would have chosen her, but somehow the line of succession didn't work that way, right? But now she's great and he's great. This is a great, beautiful couple and unbelievable career. I just said to him, you are very upwardly mobile, because he hasn't been doing it that long, but he picked it up so quickly. Remember, the first week was a little bit like the fake news was hitting him really hard. And I said, well, this may be tough, but after that, it was smooth sailing for him. He took on everybody. He took on the the meanest. I don't want to use the word corrupt because we're into a new system, so let's wait till the corruption begins, because it will. But he took on some pretty mean people, and he handled it well. I want to also congratulate Mike Johnson for the job that he's doing. See, we gave him a majority of almost nothing, and then I said to make it tougher on him, let me take 2 or 3 of the people, right? I said, he'll only have to suffer with that for about 3 months. How are they doing, by the way? Are they, is that moving along?
Totally good.
Sure. I said, do you mind if I take this one, that one, and a couple of others? He didn't mind. He can handle it. No, he's a man that's liked by everybody. I've never met a man like this. You've got how many is it, 219 or 220 or something? 220. And of the 220, 219 really like him. I noticed he got 1 negative vote once about 2 weeks ago. But I think even 220 like him, if you want to know the truth. And that's very unusual. I know a lot of nice guys in Congress, and they have 35 people that hate him. So if you have 35 people that hate you, and you only have 1 or 2 or 3 votes, you'll have 5, I think. But that's going to be like, the good news is, when we get to that 5 number, it's going to feel like a massive majority. You can be really nasty to a couple of them at least, So it's going to feel like hitting your head on the wall and stopping. It feels so good to stop, but he's done a fantastic job. And Steve Scalise's, he's our hero because, I was with him. You talk about being shot. I was with him. He got some bad ones, and his incredible wife, and she really loves him. You never know about that. I've been with other people that were doing poorly, and the wife is like looking at her watch. She can't get out of the hospital fast enough. How's he doing? I don't know. It's all right. That woman was a mess. She was crying and crying. No, they're going to take him. They're going to take him. I told Steve when he finally woke up, it was a while too. The doctor told me it was the most blood they've ever transfused in any patient. They've never done anything like it. And here he is, the picture of strength, right? And he's been a great friend of mine. Right? With a family, because of a family. And what a job you did. It worked out pretty much better than we even thought, right? And I did have a couple of things in to say that were extremely controversial. And between JD and Melania, and anybody else that heard, please, sir, it's such a beautiful, unifying speech. Please, sir, don't say these things. I said, I'm telling you, it's going to play great. They said, you're right. For this group of people, it's going to play great. You're the only ones I hurt by not, but we had some beauties, didn't we, Melania? She said, sir, calls me sir when she's angry. I said, no, I'm only kidding. I better say I'm only kidding, or the press is going to pick that one up loud and clear. No, but she said, no, I think it would be terrible. It's such a nice speech. I think it's, it all depends on your delivery. How was the delivery? Was it good? Yeah. But she said it's such a beautiful speech. You can't put things in there that you were going to put in. And I was going to talk about the J6 hostages, but you'll be happy because, it's action, not words that count. And you're going to see a lot of action on the J6 hostages. And I was going to talk about the things that Joe did today with the pardons of people that were very, very guilty of very bad crimes, like the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs, where they literally, what they did is they destroyed and deleted all of the information, all of the hearings, practically not a thing left. They deleted all.
Đó, hy vọng là Tổng thống Trump sẽ nói về thị trường stock và crypto bây giờ này quý vị.
You wouldn't have needed 10,000, you could have had 500 and it would have stopped.
Cảm ơn anh Lê Bổn nha, và cảm ơn chú Lê Bổn. Đây, chú Bảy, chú bắt đầu đi về quê nhà chú đây.
But I was talking about that. I was going to talk about that. They said, please don't bring that up right now. You can bring it up tomorrow. I said, how about now in front of the very... I'll bring it up right now. You know, this little time delay is good because we're getting great reviews on the speech. Now watch, they'll take the speech and say, I didn't like it because he left there and he talked to people. But we're giving you a little more information than we gave upstairs. But no, they pardoned a lot of people. They pardoned, before we even get to today, they pardoned, 33 murderers, absolute murderers, the worst murderers. You know, when you get the death sentence in the United States, you have to be bad because they don't give it much. And he pardoned almost everybody having a death sentence. And if you went through the crimes that were committed, you wouldn't even believe them. The level of violence, the people that were killed, the innocence of people that were killed and children killed by these people. And he pardoned them for whatever reason. He spared them, and but they didn't spare the people that they killed. And you know, who knows what happens in the future. It's one of the worst because a lot of times they let them out early after that. You know, they say you're going to be in for life, but then all of a sudden they get let out for good behavior, and then they go on a rampage. You know, it's one of those little things, right? But I was going to talk about that. But I was really going to talk about the level of, you know, what's going on. Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to help a guy like Millie? Why are we doing Millie? He was pardoned. What he said, terrible what he said. Why are we helping some of the people? Why are we helping Liz Cheney? I mean, Liz Cheney is a disaster. She's a crying lunatic and crying Adam Kinzinger. He's a super crying. I never saw the guy not crying. He's always crying. I looked at him. I remember years ago he was actually on my side. And then one day, you know, when you don't want to kill people in wars, they turn against you. Liz Cheney hated the concept of not going to war with everybody. Let's kill everybody. Let's spend a lot of money on military equipment, you know, where her father works, right? And, but what she did was incredible. Think of it. They destroyed and deleted all of that information that went on for almost 2 years against Trump. And the reason they did, because it was all false. Like the person that said, I tried to strangle a Secret Service agent. That's one of the toughest human beings I think I've ever seen. I actually had a friend say, please don't change that, sir. You are the coolest sucker in history. Remember she said, I put my hands around his neck because he wouldn't go to the Capitol. Made up fiction. And I was rebuffed. And the guy on the right is a massive weightlifter, probably stronger than me. Do you think he's stronger than me, honey? You know who I'm talking. Possibly stronger than me. Slightly younger than me, like, I won't say how many years because I don't want to talk about that, but a lot of years. But I had a friend that said, why are you disputing that story? That's the coolest story I've ever heard. That I would attack a karate champion, get slightly rebuffed, and then throw my arms around a guy with a neck about this big. Even though there are bars, you know, there are bars, you can't really do that anyway. So I wanted to talk about that, but all of that stuff got deleted. And the reason it got deleted is they were all caught in lies. You know, Secret Service testified and they said it didn't happen. Actually, the two guys were very embarrassed. They're suffering because their friends are saying, did Trump really do that to you? But they gained a whole new respect for me. But it was just make-believe stuff. And there were a lot of make-believe stories made up. So rather than suffer the wrath, like the story with Nancy Pelosi, I offered her 10,000 soldiers. She knows it. She admitted it on tape that her daughter made. She's a videographer or whatever you call her, which I'm glad she is. Oh, she can't be in good stead with Nancy. But Nancy said it was my responsibility as she's leaving the Capitol. She said it was, and it was. She's in charge of security at the Capitol. But I offered them up to 10,000 soldiers, even more. One time I said more, as many as you need, but you needed 400 or 500. If 4 or 5, you need 10,000, that would be more than the number of people there by a lot. But we offered her 10,000. Think of it, 10,000 soldiers. In other words, J6 wouldn't be J6. There would have been no J6. But she rebuffed them. She didn't like it. No, she didn't like it. Maybe she wanted that to happen. But she's guilty as hell. And now we would have to go through the process because they destroyed all evidence. They deleted everything. There's virtually nothing left. The other fake story and so many other fake stories. And many people came out on our side. And those people now, we've got to find them. There's nothing left. So that's a criminal offense. If that were a civil case, it would be a criminal offense. If that happened civilly, we did that, it would be a criminal offense. So I decided I'm not going to make this speech complicated. I'm going to make it beautiful. I'm going to make it a unifying speech. And then when they said we have a group of people that are serious Trump fans, I said, this is the time to tell those stories. So anyway, but seriously, I'd like to, I think it was a tremendous success. I think we're very lucky we put it inside because it is really cold. We just went to the helicopter out of respect for something that's taken place for a long time.
Nãy giờ chưa thấy Tổng thống Trump nhắc gì tới đồng Bitcoin hết quý vị ơi. Nãy giờ chưa nghe luôn.
But it's pretty old custom. And it's a beautiful custom, actually. It's a beautiful custom. I wish we could have had a better relationship. I wish we could have had a better relationship between Republicans and Democrats. I was with Senator Schumer. I said, Chuck, I think it's time we all start getting along a little bit because it doesn't make sense. I mean, we literally never get a Democrat vote. They never get a Republican vote, almost. And well, there is a bill coming up very shortly that we have a lot of Democrat votes, right? It's going to be a very beautiful bill. We're going to have a deciding, I would say, within a week or so, I think. And it's going to be a very good bill. You all know what I'm talking about. So, I just want to thank you all for being here.
Cảm ơn chị Tuyết Quỳnh nha.
All these people all over. You've been off there. This has been there's never been anything like it. There's never been anything like it. This has been a movement like no movement ever in history for probably any country, let alone this country. You know, if somebody's running for president, and if they go out and they announce they're going to Arizona, they're going to Nevada, they're going to someplace, if you have 200 or 300 people, that would be standard. Ronald Reagan would go out. I mean, outside of the last couple of days where people get a little excited, but even then you have a couple of thousand people. But if you're going to go someplace, any one of the swing states, any one of the other states, I mean, how about the non-swing states? We won Alabama by 48 points. We won Tennessee by massive numbers. Wyoming, we won by numbers that are, nobody's ever seen numbers like that. And, you know, places like California, we did great, but when they send out like 38 million ballots, and nobody knows where the hell they're sending them, and then they come pouring back, the whole thing. You know, they passed a law in California that if you work in an election bureau, and if you so much as ask for a voter ID, if you say, sir, ma'am, could I please look at your voter ID? They have the right to put you in jail. You're a criminal. Can you believe that? There's only one reason that happens. They want to cheat. So they had it where voter ID wasn't accepted. But now if you even ask for, this is seriously a bill that was just signed, passed in their legislature, and it was signed. And I think when we get things cleaned up and we get back to a little bit of normalcy, I'm going to ask the speaker to really get involved, because I think we would have won the state of California, because, you know, if you look at my numbers with Hispanic, we're 56%. And we won the Texas border that had never been won, as the governor said. He's doing a good job, the governor, by the way, of Texas. But as the governor said, it hasn't, oh, did I get lucky? Did I get lucky? Supposing I said, you know, he's not here, but the governor of Texas has done a terrible job. Wow, look at you. You mean we couldn't get you up in the front row? I'll tell you.
Thống đốc Tiểu bang Texas.
The governor of Texas is not doing his job. You heard what I said? See, I didn't know you were there. I said he's doing a great job. He's doing a phenomenal job. But now you're going to have a partner that's going to work with you, because you didn't have. Not only didn't he have a partner, he had people selling the wall. Right? We have a fence structure that we worked on. The governor worked on with me. And I didn't love it, to be honest with you. I wanted a nice precast concrete, you know, 40, 50 feet high, like a beautiful. Could have been a T-shaped, Y-shaped. I love construction. I wanted that sucker to go up maybe 50, 60 feet. It would have looked beautiful. A nice Y shape. And they said, the problem is, sir, they climbed that like a rabbit. I said, what do you mean? No way. And they brought some of these guys out. They climbed it like... And the other thing is you hit it with acid and the thing will disintegrate. You know, they have things for concrete. So they needed very hardened steel, very special steel. And then they needed 7,000-pound concrete inside that steel, unit inside that steel. And then they have a rebar that's the toughest steel made. Very hard to cut. So this is why very little is cut. I mean, it's right. And then they put a anti-climb panel on top. I hated it. I said, it's so unattractive. And I said, why would that work? I don't believe it works. And I went to watch the Border Patrol, gave a display. We had actually two sets of climbers. The guys that climb up walls with drugs on their back, I mean, they got like 60, 70 pounds of drug, and they go as fast as you can walk. They go bip, bip, bip. Or we have Mount Everest type climbers. And honestly, the drug guys were much better. I couldn't believe it. The drug guys blew them away, right? But it's true, the anti-climb panel, they couldn't get around it. They just couldn't. When you didn't have it. So sometimes you sacrifice beauty for efficiency. And we did. So we built this wall, and we built over 500 miles of wall. That's why we had such good numbers. The famous chart that came down very thankfully. The chart that came down on my right, Governor. Had I not looked over there, I'm not speaking right now. You might be speaking here. You want to know the truth? You, JD, we've got a lot of great people in this party, but I got very lucky, but we had the best numbers we've ever had. But I bought, you know what happens is when you fill it up, it's like water. You fill it up. Now we have 571 miles of wall. And they would always say, you know, when we renovated a wall, so there'd be like a piece of plywood sitting there for 60 years, or a 2x4 sitting for 60 years on the ground and rotting. Because, you know, and they say, you didn't build a new wall. Here we're building 50 feet up in the air, 30 feet sections, 50-foot sections, all steel, all concrete, all everything. And all, by the way, they don't even want me to say this, but what the hell, doesn't take that long time. They're all wired for all of the equipment. We put wires in everything so they can easily wire for all of the different types of equipment. So if there's a doubt, we have a wire. Whenever we just look, you just find the wires all over the place up top, so we could just hook it up. We don't have to have wires on the outside, which wouldn't do too well, right? So anyway, so we built an extra 200 miles of wall, and the governor wanted to buy it. He tried to buy it, and they wouldn't sell it to him. He wanted to put it up himself. Could have been done in 3 to 4 weeks, 200 more miles, because when you do it now, they just keep going further out, further out, further out, getting around. So we did an extra 200 miles, and it was all bought. And they announced that they're not going to put it up. And that's when I realized they wanted open borders, and that's when I realized that people are going to come pouring through the wall like nobody's ever seen before. But you've seen it. A lot of you are here because of the...
Chú Bảy lên máy bay để bay về quê nhà đó quý vị. Chú Bảy leo lên máy bay để bay về quê nhà. Chưa nghe Tổng thống Trump nói gì tới đồng Bitcoin hết quý vị ơi. Quý vị ơi.
Being deposited into the United States, and that man had to suffer with it, and he did an unbelievable job. I'll tell you, he was a very popular governor, but now he's like an unbeatable governor because of your border policy. He was fantastic, and he really was. Governor Abbott, he's a great man, great leader, and but it did make him very more. Did you do it? You didn't do that for politics. You did it because you wanted to do the right thing. But I'll tell you, it sure as hell worked for politics too. It's self-preservation. That's right. But no, because the people are demanding it. The people of Texas are demanding it. The people are demanding it all over. So anyway, so we built it, and they wouldn't let us use it. They wouldn't let the governor use it, and other governors, they wouldn't let him use it. But he was the leader of the pack and did a great job. And then we heard about a month ago that not only wouldn't they let it use it, they were selling it, they were going to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar. Now, 5 cents on the dollar then, but today it would cost more than twice as much to build because we bought it like 6 years ago. And it was just sitting on the ground, and that does not do well for the whole thing. But it was just sitting on the ground, and I heard about it, and I called the governor, and I called a lot of people, the attorney general. And here's the story. They were going to buy it, and these are great business people. They were going to buy it for 5 cents on the dollar or less, and they were calling us up, we'll sell it to you for 200 cents on the dollar. In other words, it will cost you twice as much, so it's 200 cents on the dollar. I said, can somebody explain that to a judge? I mean, how corrupt is that? You'd think they'd say, maybe we'll sell it to you for 20 cents, 30 cents, but not 200 cents. So they were going to buy something for 5 cents, and they were going to sell it to us for a fortune. They're going to make it would be, they'd have it down in Fortune magazine, they put it as the deal of the year, okay? You buy something like that. But it was so corrupt and so horrible. And when we told that to the administration, they didn't care. They just kept going forward. They couldn't care less. And they kept going forward. They knew that they were trying to sell it back to us. They would have sold it back to us. You would have ended up buying it. You would have paid probably 50, 60 cents. Who knows? But they were going to use it for scrap metal, but then they made a much better deal. They could just buy it and sell it to us for 15, 20 times what they paid. 20 times, think of it, like 20 times what they paid. And we wouldn't let it happen. And the governor with his attorney general, Ken Paxton, they made a fantastic, they're a good lawyer. He's pushing on pretty good by people, right? I said, you got a great attorney general. They should leave him alone. He was with me. But Ken and the governor went to court, and a judge actually became incensed and actually called for an investigation. How could a thing like this happen? So he stopped it. So we're waiting to put that wall up. And now that you have a new president, that wall will go up so fast. The governor will complain, sir. This is Greg Abbott, sir. Please, the wall is going up too fast. Please don't do that. You know the story about winning? No, we're going to win too much. We're winning too much, please. And stuff. People always love that one. We'll do this with the wall. Governor Abbott calls, sir, the wall is going up too fast. We can't take it. We just can't take it. No, I think you'll be very happy if the wall goes up too fast, right? But we'll get that done. We'll work with you on that. But it was a great decision by a great Texas judge, right? And it was beautiful to watch. We stopped them right in their track. I mean, they were literally loading the stuff onto trucks. It was terrible. Honestly, it was terrible.
Tổng thống Trump phát biểu chút xíu nữa là bắt đầu sẽ vô văn phòng ngồi xuống để ký cả trăm cái sắc lệnh, quý vị ơi. Hy vọng là trong những cái sắc lệnh đó nó có liên quan tới crypto nha quý vị. Liên quan tới đồng Bitcoin là điều thứ nhất. Để cho đồng Bitcoin nó bắn lên thì nó kéo những cái anh em kia bắn theo. Ráng chờ đợi đi quý vị ơi.
But this has been a long journey. This was a journey that started in 2015, probably started 20 years before that. People used to say, you're going to run for president? You're going to run? And I always said, no, I don't want. And then one day I said, let's give it a shot. And what I talked about then was the border too. I think it probably was the number one issue for me. Back in 2015, 2016, I talked about the border. And now I talked about the border, but this border is much worse. We fixed the border. It was totally fixed. There was nothing to talk about. 2020, by the way, that election was totally rigged, but that's okay. It was a rigged election. You know the only thing good about it? It showed how bad they are. It showed how incompetent. And frankly, historically, this is a much bigger event. If that would have gone like it should have. The bad thing about it is some bad things happened, like a lot of people in our country that wouldn't be in our country right now. So, that's the bad part. But I will say that it started in 2015, and right from the beginning, we went to the top. Day one, they announced Trump, and Trump went to number one and stayed there for the whole primary. And then we took on Hillary. She didn't look too happy today. We took on a very nice person, but we took on Hillary and we defeated Hillary, then we did much better the second time in 2020. You know, we got millions more votes. We got millions, like 10, 12 million more votes than we did the first time. No president has ever gotten that many more votes. I got like 9 million more than anybody else had ever gotten. And they said we lost. And because of that, I said to Melania, what do you think? And she said, you want to do this again? And had we lost, and had I thought we lost, I wouldn't do it again, because that's like the ultimate poll, right? But I knew how well we did. And this time we made it too big to rig. It was so big. They tried. They tried. They tried like hell. They tried to do it, and around 9:02 they gave up. Last time they did bad things, and this time they just said, you know, I don't know if you saw Mr. Speaker in Washington, they had placards, they were all set to march. They thought it'd be closer. A gentleman asked me, a very respected gentleman asked me yesterday, how come the polls were so wrong? They showed you winning, but not in a landslide. I said, because people that are true Trumpers are so angry at the whole polling system and at the writers, the fake news, that they don't want to talk to anybody. So when you call somebody from Trump, who are you voting for? They say, it's none of your business. I'm not telling you. And that was probably 40% of the people they called. So they would discard that one. And they didn't show that. And then when the election happened, you know, the vote came, and it was much different, much higher than, we're going to win, but they really thought, they couldn't believe the one man said, I mean, it was so much higher. We won all 7 swing states. We won the popular vote by millions of votes, which is hard for a Republican. I'll tell you who came through. The unions came through. The auto workers were great. The Teamsters were great. The firemen were great. I think almost every union was great. The only one that weren't great, although Sean was great, and the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, was fantastic. But generally speaking, the head of the union was against Trump, but the union would be with us for like 80, 85%. Look what we did with the auto workers in Michigan. Look what we did with the Teamsters. The Teamsters were unbelievable. They were a solid Democrat vote, and they voted for Trump. So we had a great experience. This has been, now we have to go to work and get it done, because we have to do something that's going to be great. We're going to turn our country around, and we're going to turn it around fast. And I think this was a better speech than the one I made upstairs, okay? I think this was better, JD. I think this was much better, and I got to see my friend. So, Governor, take care of yourself. You call me, we'll start working. You know what that means with him? He's going to be calling me tomorrow morning at about 6. And I said, how about next week? You call me and we're going to get it started real fast. It'll really help you a lot. You've done a fantastic job protecting something which is it's not supposed to be for the states. And amazing job you've done. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody. And I have a First Lady who's been incredible. I was super. I shouldn't say this. I'm going to get hell when I say this, but her feet are absolutely aching. You know, those heels. And we thought we were leaving. We were going home. Sir, would you be able to go down and say hello to some of your other fans that are here? I said, oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Did you get to see pretty clearly the picture I have? Good. That's good. But because you wouldn't want to make the same speech again, right? But she said, darling, I love you so much, but my feet are killing me. I said, honey, let me just see how far it is. I asked the person. Oh, not that long, maybe 400 or 500 yards. That's 5 football fields. I said, can you make it? She said, we're going to make it no matter what. We're going to make it because we have to go. Right? And then we went out to the helicopter just prior to this and said goodbye. And it's a custom, and the wind is blowing like crazy. And with the hat that she's wearing, she almost blew away. We almost lost her. She was being elevated off the ground. She almost blew away. No, so we all appreciate it because you've been a great First Lady, a beautiful and a great First Lady, and they love our First Lady. You know, JD, whenever I make a speech, I see hundreds of times, we love our first lady, we love, and they do, and they should. She's great. So I just want to thank you very much. I just want to thank everybody. And I felt that, I said to JD, should we give him the A treatment, the B treatment, the C, the D, or the F? You know what the F is? Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye. I gave you the A+ treatment. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Governor. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
President Trump, now having delivered his inaugural address and his second speech here, unscripted, and he tells the crowd listening there.
Rồi bây giờ sẽ vào trong văn phòng để ngồi xuống ký nè quý vị ơi, chuẩn bị đi, chuẩn bị củi lửa đi, chuẩn bị đi. Lấy thúng, lấy vỏ đệm ra hay là để bao rác thì ra sẵn đi quý vị nhé, với cái cân để kế bên. Quý vị bấm lên đúng 1.000 like đi là tự nhiên quý vị sẽ có thúng để đựng đô la, cân để cân đô la. Hôm qua tôi đi chợ Việt Nam tôi mua cái vỏ đệm mới quý vị, cái vỏ đệm ở dưới miền Tây người ta hay xách đi chợ đó quý vị.
Moving forward, and including the border, which he said still was the biggest issue of this election. He said inflation was big, but he believed that the border was the biggest issue. I do want to bring in Catherine Falders from our investigative team and our political team because Catherine has some reporting that we want to get on the air with involving the border. And before we get to that, though, let's talk about January 6th, Catherine. And you heard him reference there the pardons, some of the pardons that came from the outgoing president, but then hinting at the action he'll be taking later today. And you've learned more about what that action will actually be.
Yeah, David, and I should caution, and of course this isn't final until Trump signs the paperwork, but we're learning from multiple sources that these pardons, that these January 6 defendants' pardons will be much more sweeping in nature than some of his allies even predicted. We're told that he will extend pardons to these January 6 defendants, but in addition to that, we're told that Trump plans to commute the sentences of those who are in prison now for those violent offenses on those police officers. Now, what does that mean? That means hundreds of individuals who are currently serving time for attacks on police officers, their sentences will be commuted. Now, he hasn't signed this yet. He is intending to, and that's what's anticipated. But the other thing worth noting here is this will extend, David, to two of those most high-profile defendants that we talked a lot about in January 6th. The Oath Keepers founder, Stuart Rhodes, the Proud Boys leader, Enrique Tarrio, they're both serving 18 years and 22 years, respectively, for, of course, leading members of their respective groups in a seditious conspiracy to thwart the lawful transfer of power. Those two individuals we could see out of jail as soon as today. I'm told that Trump will also direct his attorney general to drop those pending cases. There are 300 cases where defendants have been charged but not found guilty or convicted or pled guilty in any way. Roughly 180 of those 300 pending charges, David, were charged with assaulting or impeding police. So essentially, this will affect every single one of the January 6th defendants. There are 1,600 of them, so they should be getting that news soon. Of course, I should caution, nothing is final until Trump signs the pardon paperwork, but he's expected to do that today.
Again, the significant caveat to the reporting that Catherine Falders is bringing to us at this hour is that nothing is final until President Trump signs this later today. There's still time between now and then, and all of this appears to be fluid. But Catherine, all told, about how many defendants total are we talking about?
It would affect, essentially, David, every single one of them. There's 1,600. That's the total number of January 6 defendants who will be impacted in some way. The pardons that you will see, most likely, are for those who were non-violent. But the significant part of this is those commutations for those defendants who violently assaulted police officers. That means that their sentences are over. Essentially, they will have time served in jail today. Trump is expected to sign this today, and they will be out of prison. So that, of course, is the big news there, and much further than Trump's allies thought he would go. You remember Vice President J.D. Vance said today that there wouldn't be pardons. He didn't believe for violent offenders. Of course, these aren't pardons or commutations, but it means that they will be out of jail, of course, if this reporting stands and Trump doesn't change his mind between now and the time that he signs this. So there's that element of it. And then, of course, all of the cases that are still pending in the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office just down the street, those won't exist anymore after today.
All right, Catherine Faulders, you'll stick with us, and as soon as you learn more about when he plans to sign this, and when it becomes official, if it becomes official, and we'll bring you back on. In the meantime, I want to bring in our Chief Justice Correspondent, Pierre Thomas, because Pierre, again, the caveat here is, things can still change before he signs it, but Catherine, according to her reporting, believes that his actions this afternoon could affect just about everyone, if not everyone, who was charged in connection with January 6th. And of course, as you heard Catherine say, that involves the most serious of charges, those who even were involved in conflict with officers.
Ông chủ Facebook nè, ông chủ Facebook nè.
And those
Chủ Facebook kìa.
orchestrate what the country and the world saw play out on January 6th, that this could be sweeping in nature and affect just about everyone here.
David, here's where it's fascinating. Of the 1,500 or so people charged in connection with January 6th, a stunning 608 were charged with assaulting and resisting police. It's going to be fascinating to see exactly who would be included, because there are videos of some of these people viciously assaulting law enforcement. And I'm wondering how that's going to factor into this down the stretch of this decision, David. And we've been in conversation today, checked in with Harry Dunn, for example, David, who was very pleased about what Biden did, but was also expressing some frustration that he even had to have a preemptive pardon by Biden, because he talked about how he was fighting for democracy, trying to protect the Capitol, and there he was having to get a pardon, David.
All right, Pierre Thomas with us here as well. Pierre reacting to Catherine Faulders reporting, and as soon as that becomes official, we'll certainly report that out even further. Again, the president has gone to Emancipation Hall, and now he has left Emancipation Hall. We believe he's headed to the president's room, correct? And we will see that here shortly. We continue to await a luncheon as well, where he'll have lunch with not only Republicans, but Democrats and leaders there on the Hill. Former President Joe Biden has left Washington, and he did speak, and it was a relatively short speech. Here's what he said just moments ago.
Folks, came to thank you. I don't think we could have done anything. I know we couldn't have done anything we did without you. Kamala and Doug and members of the cabinet, all the staff is here, all across all the agencies, and friends, supporters. Jill and I are forever grateful to you. I mean that. We're genuinely grateful. As you heard me say before, no president gets to choose the moment they enter history, but they get to choose the team they did enter history with. And we chose the best damn team in the world. You are. No, it's because of you. I mean this sincere from the bottom of my heart. Because of you, we got so much done for all Americans. I look down there, my Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, and cheated only by his wife who worked from his first. But look, I only hope to look back in these years. I hope you look back on them with the same pride I have of all you've done. I'm proud of is that you did it upholding the core values of honesty, decency, and integrity. I mean, no scandal. I mean, it's incredible what you did. And you represent the best of who we are as Americans. That's not a joke. That's real. Now, I relied on your ideas, resolve, and counsel. We also relied on your families. To all your families, thank you for the sacrifices you made. I mean it. For being part of this journey. Every day, I'm deeply moved by all we all did for this country. I really mean it. History's going to mark down just what you did. But the point I want to make today is to make clear my farewell address as we all We have a lot more to do. We heard the inaugural address today. We got a lot more to do. I know from many years of experience, they're up and down, but we have to stay with it. My dad taught me the measure of person, you heard me say it before, is how quickly they get back up when they get knocked down. That's what we have to do right now. And we've always done our best as Americans. We never, never, never give up. Never. We're leaving office, but we're not leaving the fight. You're smart, you're skilled, you're passionate. The country needs you again. So all you can, stay engaged in all the ways you can. Whether it's in public service, the private sector, philanthropy, academia, running for office yourself, or anything else you choose to do. I give you my word, we believe in you. We, Jill and I, our family, believe in you. Just as I've said, how the laws we enacted our seasons are going to grow and bloom for decades to come. I say that to you as well. I have no doubt you'll make this experience and take the friendships you've made to continue to do amazing things in decades to come. That's why I see a future. All of them leading the way by you all. You know, so take some time to decompress, reconnect with your friends, spend more time with your family. But most of all, take care of yourselves and each other. I mean it. Let me close where I began with my sincere gratitude. And I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. I've been doing this for 50 years. You're the best group of people. Hard to say. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. And I tell you what, the greater honor is being able to serve with all of you. You're incredible. You really are. You really are. Mark my words. History's going to judge what you've done as one of the most significant contributions that's been made by all of America. Look, folks, you know, let me close that poem you heard me quote before. Seamus Haney wrote, "Once in a lifetime, the long-for tidal wave of justice will rise up and open misty rhyme. You made it rhyme louder than it's rhymed in a long time." I really mean it. We're on the cusp of real change, so let's make hope in history rhyme. I love you all. I've keeping you too long, but thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Bottom of our heart, thank you. Thank you. Can I go up this way?
President Biden, First Lady Jill Biden, the outgoing President and First Lady, moments ago, leaving Joint Base Andrews. You can see the plane there waiting for them. The president, former president, saying, "Stay engaged," saying, "I've been doing this for 50 years." Did say something like, "We're on the cusp of real change. Don't give up." But that's quite something to deliver to a crowd when somebody else has just been sworn in and delivered the inaugural address. And President Trump has his own plans for real change. So, again, sort of a split-screen moment here in Washington, and it does reflect the country. Again, sweeping mandate in the Electoral College, but still a fairly close election. Just a couple million separated Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in the popular vote. And what the former president, Joe Biden, was trying to do is keep people engaged, keep the supporters engaged. You can see them now talking to some members of his own cabinet, Secretary of State, former Secretary of State Antony Blinken right there in the crowd, having just embraced the outgoing former President Joe Biden there. And John Carl, he clearly did express a little bit of, his own reaction, if you will, to what he sat through with the inaugural address just about an hour ago from former, now incoming President Trump, the 47th President of the United States.
He said the fight's not over. We still have work to do. And he made a comment, especially after hearing that speech, we've got work to do, and then he crossed himself.
Yeah, sign of the cross, right? Yeah.
Sign of the cross, as if to say he needed a little moment of prayer after hearing the first of the two speeches that Donald Trump has given so far today. David, I can only imagine his reaction to the pardons that we just heard of Catherine Falders to report the pardons and commutations for virtually everybody who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Let's face it, those prosecutions, some 1,600 cases, are a big part, or were a big part, of Joe Biden's legacy, holding people to account for attacking the United States Capitol on January 6th, 2021. And that legacy is now up in smoke. And as we reported here, as we first came on the air with these inaugural activities, that decision to expand the pardons and commutations, and again, they haven't been issued yet, but Catherine Falders is reporting that they are about to be issued. They're expected to be issued. That was a change that was made since last night, and a change that I am told was made as a result of the pardons that Joe Biden issued this morning. Donald Trump had originally planned to issue pardons for all the nonviolent offenders on January 6th. And in terms of those that had committed attacks on police officers and violence, that he was going to refer that to his Justice Department to review, as J.D. Vance had suggested about a week ago, on more of a case-by-case basis. But now you have the broadest, if he goes through with what, again, Catherine Falders has reported, the broadest possible action he could have taken regarding those who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Virtually all of them to be, if he goes through with this, free by the end of the day.
As we watch Joe Biden and Jill Biden leave Washington after Joe Biden's 50 years of public service, Terry Moran, if Catherine Falders' reporting holds, this would be extraordinarily sweeping in nature.
Sweeping and telling about this national moment. Think of it, those two men in the Capitol today, side by side, performing the constitutionally mandated and this time peaceful transfer of power, and is still fighting over the meaning of January 6th with their pardons. President Biden preemptively pardoning the members of the committee and some of the witnesses before the committee that investigated the attack on the Capitol. President Trump now pardoning, it looks like, pretty much everyone who attacked the Capitol. One of the things that was at issue in this election is, what does January 6th mean to the United States? Not just now, but in the future. That question has not been resolved. To many in the country, most Republicans on the day, it was horrifying and disgusting and a crime against our democracy. They've changed their tune. A lot of Americans still feel that way. Other Americans see it as a lot of hyped up partisan politics. How we resolve that dispute will tell us a lot about who we're going to be.
Yeah, that's true, Terry, and something we heard in traveling the country, and Martha, I know you talk about this too in covering this election, is that people would acknowledge it. They didn't like what they saw, but it wasn't their number one issue. It wasn't even near the top of the list. So whether wiping it right
Đây, bây giờ tới giây phút Tổng thống Trump sẽ ký xác lệnh nè quý vị ơi. Trời ơi, đây right here. Đây, lần đầu tiên Tổng thống Trump sẽ ngồi xuống cái ghế Tổng thống và bắt đầu ký xác lệnh nè quý vị. Right here. Right here, right here.
pieces of paperwork that you essentially have to once you become president and putting into motion officially your selections for your cabinet. We heard the president asked there if he was okay with that.
Nãy giờ là Tổng thống Trump chỉ ký nhân sự đó quý vị. Ký nhân sự là ký cái bộ máy chính quyền của Tổng thống Trump là ai làm chức vụ gì, cái gì đó quý vị nhé, chứ chưa có ký một cái sắc lệnh gì cả.
by the small pool of reporters there how his meeting was with the president this morning. He said it was the former president this morning. President Trump saying that his time with Joe Biden was very nice, saying it was a beautiful custom for the two of them to travel together. Of course, that time together came before.
Bây giờ là tới ăn trưa nè quý vị, ăn tiệc đó quý vị ơi. Ăn tiệc cái lễ nhậm chức đó quý vị.
Result of his predecessor's administration. And then he was asked, to comment on the pardons that Biden made this morning. And he said he didn't want to go into detail, but he did call it unfortunate. But Trump did say in that sort of second inaugural address that he gave at the Capitol to his supporters who were gathered that he clearly was not pleased with the pardons that Joe Biden issued this morning. He said that he was pardoning people who were very, very guilty of very bad crimes. Of course, that's simply not true yet. They haven't been charged with any crime. As Biden said this morning, there was no signs of wrongdoing by Fauci or Milley or Liz Cheney or the others on the committee or those witnesses who he preemptively pardoned. But as John Carl was reporting, it certainly seems that may have played a role in Donald Trump's decision. It certainly seems in his decision to go ahead and issue more sweeping pardons and commutations for the January 6th convicted criminals. And of course, we should mention also that wasn't the only pardons Biden issued today. He also issued some pardons for members of his family preemptively for his siblings and his in-laws. But again, as Terry was saying earlier, just a remarkable sort of tit for tat, even up to the very last minute as we see this transfer of power over just what the meaning of January 6th is.
And former President Joe Biden also made it clear in pardoning his family members in the 11th hour, the 11th minute,
Really?
I could almost say, not because of wrongdoing is what he said. He just feared that that there would be retribution in the months to come.
Correct. He said that these were to prevent, as he put it, baseless and politically motivated attacks. And again, saying that just because he was issuing these preemptive pardons, it was not an acknowledgement of any wrongdoing, but yet another sign that even as we are going through the motions today, even as Biden was participating in this transfer of power and inviting Trump to the White House, that Biden simply did not trust Donald Trump to use his power appropriately.
Mary, thank you. You're looking live at the luncheon on Capitol Hill. This is when leaders from both parties gather to welcome the incoming president. There will be gifts exchanged here at the luncheon, and President Trump will make comments here as well. It's customary that the president would arrive, you would see a couple of moments, and then they would shut down the cameras just for a brief period so that they can actually eat lunch. Presumably without all of us peering in while they're eating their food. He's expected to arrive here at any moment. And then later this afternoon, Rachel Scott is at the Capital One Arena. And Rachel, it's my understanding that will replace the inaugural parade that Americans are so sort of accustomed to seeing, that sort of march back down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Exactly, David. A very different inaugural parade will be happening this year for the first time in decades, because this will take the place of that traditional inaugural parade that we normally see down Pennsylvania Avenue. Instead, President Donald Trump will come here. This is an arena that is filled with thousands of his supporters. I had a chance to talk to him over the weekend. I asked him about the weather, really throwing a wrench in his inauguration plans, and he said he was actually looking forward to being here with his supporters. This has the feel of a campaign rally on the jumbotrons here. They have been playing every single thing that we have been watching unfold. People have been standing, chanting USA, USA. They also booed here when former President Biden departed on that helicopter with the former First Lady of the United States as well. This is a crowd that's very, very fired up. And notably here, David, also